What's up, book babes? Get comfy, get cozy. It's time to chill. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Emily, and this is Book Bits and Chill, the podcast where we break down every chapter, thirst over fictional men, and never take ourselves too seriously.
Today, we will be covering chapters 29 through 35 of Emily Henry's Great Dictate's Life. We'll recap the chapters, we'll talk about them in depth, and then we'll go into our bits of the week where we rant, spiral, all of the above about what happened in those chapters. So we kick off with Alice and Hayden exploring on their day off, their collective day off, and they end up at a graveyard for whatever reason. And Hayden is like, I actually love graveyards. And Alice is like, what? Actually, no, I don't even think she questions that. She's like,
she doesn't.
She's like, yeah, check it out. Meanwhile, I'm like, what in the fuck? What in the nightmare before Christmas is occurring with this man?
Alice does not question his red flag one single time.
Doesn't care. She's like, all I care about is getting in those pants, and that's it. So he is like, I love graveyards because I love the permanence of graveyards. I love that you always have this place that you can find your loved ones no matter what. And Alice is like, oh my God, that makes total sense. And later they're at her house making dinner, and Hayden asks her if she's figured out the picture of Cecil yet. And of course she hasn't. She's like, why do you keep asking me about this picture? I don't understand, but whatever. And he's like, just so you know, you need to figure this out before you take the job. Okay. And at this point, like, it's becoming so clear that he's like planning to bow out of this job. Like, he's just basically sticking it out to hang out with Alice at this point. And she has no idea. And she's like, I get it. I feel like Margaret's like leaving things out. She knows things that she's not including. She's telling half-truths for sure, intentionally. But she's like, we're about to get into the meat of the story, so we'll see. And that eventually dovetails into this conversation about if they believe in free will or not. And they like essentially talk about that there's only so much in your control and the rest is up to the universe. And you should really just do what you can for the people that you care about. And eventually they're like, they say some sort of line of where Hayden's like, oh yeah, I think that you can have the world. And she's like, oh, can I? And he's like, you can have mine. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is so tough.
At this point in the story, I was like, can we just cut to all of Margaret's story and like
truly
Alice out of it?
Like, can we just cut to the end of the week, because up until then nothing's happening. So then we get to Margaret's next session where we pick up where we left off on her story about Laura being at Dr. David's retreat and saying, please don't contact me. So Margaret and the family are obviously devastato. They're like, what the fuck is going on? Why wouldn't you want to talk to us? Whatever. They try to write her. She writes back and she's like, just FYI, if you guys write me, like, it sets my time back that I'm going to be here. It sets my healing journey back. Like, she's using all the fucking like buzzwords. And so they're like, okay, we're going to respect her boundaries, whatever, we're not going to write. But then 5 months go by and Laura's still there. So they decide to hire a private detective. And so the PI goes down to track her down, and he comes back with a bunch of pictures of her, and they all are showing her with this Dr. David man and other women here and there, like just looking happy. They're laughing, whatever. But she does note that Laura did look very skinny at this point, but she didn't fully like resonate with why. She's just like focused on the fact that Laura's out with her hair blowing in the wind and she's smiling. So they like put it on the side and they're like, you know what? She's there. There's nothing we can do about it. She'll come back when she needs to. Meanwhile, Margaret and Cosmo's marriage is flourishing. They're having the best time together. They're so in love. They're making love every day. Like, Alice and Hayden are not. And they're having the best time. But then Cosmo decides to go on tour. And Margaret goes with him for a little bit, but then she's like, this is not for me. This is not pour moi. I am not meant for the backstage on a nightly basis. I am meant for center stage. And so she goes home back to the House of Ives, and their relationship is like fine during it, I would say. There was a lot of press that came out that would basically insinuate that Cosmo was cheating on her. And Margaret's like, I loved him so much that I literally didn't ask. But then she's also like, he called me every single day, sometimes twice a day. Like, whatever. I didn't have any like reason to think that he would be cheating on me. And so his tour ends, he comes back, the more time passes, Laura's still at Dr. David's, and Cosmo's career is starting to slow down because this is when the Beatles enter the Beatles. And so obviously the Beatles literally took down Elvis. They took down poor man's Elvis. They took down everyone. And so he's having a lot of anxiety about this because he didn't come from a lot of money. Obviously, he came from just a normal kind of background in Nashville. And so he's just like nervous and panicky about like losing the money. And Margaret's like, babe, it's fine. We're literally gajillionaires.
Gajillionaires.
And so Margaret ends up having a pregnancy scare during this where she like literally didn't get her period for like 5 minutes or something. And she's like panicked. And then she gets it. And she's like relieved when she gets it. And she figures out that she's actually conflicted about being a mom because she is very conflicted about bringing a child into the world that they live in. And so Cosmo doesn't understand this at this point, of course. And he's like, I feel like you've bamboozled me. Like, I thought you wanted kids, whatever. And Margaret's like, this would have been a good conversation for us to have before we
never talked about this in the 2 weeks you're recording.
Shocking. I'm shocked. And so this is like the first fight that they ever have. And she's so upset about it. She decides that she's going to write Laura. And so she writes Laura. She like basically catches her up on everything. She tells her about this. And she's like, it felt like this closure with this whole situation with Laura because I just got everything out. And if she didn't respond, then it's fine because I knew that she was happy. And so we cut to a family dinner with Cosmo, Bernie, Freddie, Roy, the stepdad. Bernie's just thrown in left and right. And Freddie out of nowhere stands up in the middle of dinner and he's like, I'm calling a family meeting. And they're like, what? And like by family meeting, he means just him, Bernie, and Margaret. Oof. And so they go into their study and the fire's blazing, even though it's literally like middle of August in California. And Freddie immediately turns to them and says, we're being extorted. And they're like, no.
My host.
My host. I can't even imagine who.
So they find out that they're being extorted by none other than Dr. Ryan David.
Dr. David Ryan Atwood.
And Laura herself.
Shocking.
So they're basically like, we're going to give into this extortion because Laura was so close to Gerald. They were BFFs. She knows secrets about the Ives family nobody knows. And she's basically going to release all of our secrets if we don't give Dr. David the...
Laura is the Chamber of Secrets.
She is. So they're like, okay, but if we're going to give them this money, the least we can do is get a face-to-face with Laura. So they decide that they're going to pass off the money in person and they delegate Margaret to be the one to do so.
Of course.
So she goes down to New Mexico to meet Laura at some like sketchy little diner. And Laura walks in with like a bodyguard, one would say.
Oh.
And she's looking very malnourished, scared, fit. Her hair is not blowing in the wind and she is not smiling. And Margaret goes, immediate A-team. We're going in and we're getting her out. So Margaret's like whispering to her because the bodyguard's by the door and is like, tell me what's wrong. Tell me what's happening. And Laura's like, it's fine. It's fine. And Margaret's like, it's clearly not fine. Again, like there's this theme in the story where it's like these women are saying things are fine when nothing is fine.
When one of them is clearly in peril, by the way.
So Margaret's like, fess up. And so she's like, go to this address tomorrow at 11 a.m. I'm whispering like I'm the one.
Tomorrow. I think it was like September 1st. She like,
okay,
her, like...
whatever. This book, it could be tomorrow. It could be in 4 years. Who knows? Emily Henry has us on a wild goose. So at some day, come to this September 1st, 11 a.m., come to this address. Something's going to be going down. And the bodyguard is like, time's up, time to leave, and makes Margaret like stay in the bathroom for 10 minutes until they're gone. So she like isn't connected to them or doesn't see where they go. I'm unsure.
Yeah. Well, doesn't Laura during that conversation like break for a second and she's like, he won't let me leave. Like, he won't let me leave.
he won't let me leave. I'm his.
Yeah.
Like, he says, I'm his. And
yeah,
so you're like,
scary Jonestown culty vibes.
Something's going on. So all Margaret comes away with outside of this bathroom is this address and this date. So they decide to get the FBI involved, and they're like, something's going down, something not good, and we think that we should go to this address at this time. So the FBI gets together and goes down there on September 1st and goes to this warehouse that the address takes them to, and there's an illegal shipment of guns being accepted by members of this cult that Dr. David runs. Do you know what it's called, Cass?
I can't remember.
The People's Movement.
Yeah, it was the People's Movement.
Yeah, and there's this whole like shoot down, and they kill multiple members of this cult and arrest multiple people, but Laura and Dr. David are not there. Yeah. And so they realize they're at the center. So they go and swarm the center, and Dr. David is there with a bunch of women, and he locks them in the bathroom for 7 hours during the standoff.
They're all his wives.
Yes. And he's like trying to keep them from coming in, obviously. So they obviously get in. It's the FBI.
It's the FBI.
And they
find the FBI.
They find Laura obviously completely emaciated, and she admits that they were only being fed sugary juices, fruit, and sodas as some sort of medical treatment for an unknown illness.
Scary.
Oh, so they complete the rescue. They take Laura home to the House of Ives. Nobody knows what happens to the other women. And she's obviously suffering horrific PTSD. And so Margaret and Cosmo are like, come to Nashville with us. Come move into our home. And honestly, I didn't expect her to say yes, but she says yes. And she moves them to Nashville, where she slowly starts to improve, and she meets one of their friends, a doctor, who she feels comfortable enough with that she's able to be treated physically and kind of get better emotionally and physically. Yeah. But, you know, at the same time, the Beatles are just still hitting town.
The Beatles are running
rampant. They're global. And so while the Ives is healing from this trauma, Cosmo is struggling with his loss of fame. And while he's touring for all these older crowds, smaller crowds, isn't making as much money, Margaret's like, sorry, I got to stay home with Laura. Like, I can't be out there being your wife. I need to help Laura. So one day, while Cosmo's out, she realizes she's having another pregnancy scare. To be honest, I do not know what contraception was at this time. But with the amount of pregnancy...
To be honest, were they wearing girdles or not? Or condoms invented at this point?
There were a lot of pregnancy scares, and I'm a little confused. But this one was different because she realizes that even though it was just a scare, she actually felt excited. And she was like, maybe I do want to be a mom.
Oh, love that. Love some hope and joy for Margaret for once. We'll take it.
Guys, that was just one chapter.
I can't believe that all of that happened, and then they just like went back, and then Laura just like went to live her. I don't know. It just the whole thing was mind-blowing.
They do lightly mention like a trial that goes on.
Yeah, they do, and Laura testified on that.
Laura testifies, and that's how Dr. David like gets arrested.
Yeah,
and there's like light touch on that, but still, you never know what happens to the other wives.
Yeah, zero idea. We only focus on Laura here.
Yeah.
And that's it. So we do end up, after that, cutting back to Alice after that meaty chapter.
Yeah.
And she's doing some fact checking on the whole thing. The whole story completely checks out with what she had already known, what was out in the media, all of that stuff. But she notices as she's looking at the pictures, a man in the courtroom that looks strangely familiar. And she ends up looking it up, and it's the Cecil, and it's literally the picture that he had sent her was like identical to the man in these photos. And so she does her research. She finds out that Cecil was his first name, but he's actually the doctor, and so he was going under a different name at that point. And so at this point, he's Dr. Cecil. We know him as Captain Cecil. He has many identities. And so he was the doctor for Laura all along. He was the doctor for Cosmo. He was apparently the doctor that was there when Cosmo was pronounced dead. And so clearly this man is very close to the family. And Alice is like, what the fuck? We literally have been interacting with this man. We went to his half birthday party. Like, I don't understand. So she texts Hayden and she's like, what the fuck? He immediately comes over and they finally break one of their fucking rules and they talk about it. And they're just brainstorming. They're like, what could this mean? Why would she not tell us? Why would she lie? At one point, they're like, maybe she's sick and maybe like this is the doctor that's been treating her, whatever. And Hayden basically is just like, she has been fishy since day one, and she's been keeping things from us since day one. So they both make this pact to confront her about it separately in their separate sessions. And so after that, a few days go by. Hayden has his session with her. Alice's is the following day. And they meet up for one of their final nights together. And Alice is doing all of this reflection. And she's like, our days are numbered. Everything's going to change after this. We live in different sides of the country, all the things. And they end up breaking another rule and end up having sex.
Finally.
But if I'm being honest, it was very anticlimactic. Like,
yes.
Weirdly, all of the other everything but scenes were like way better than this. Like, it's just like she was like seeing stars and she wanted to say that she loved him and she couldn't and whatever. But like, that was pretty much it. Like, it wasn't anything crazy.
Yeah, I actually had a note that was like, that was something. Like, they literally just had sex.
Yeah.
That's what happens in my bedroom.
I know all about that.
Nothing too crazy.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was like, I don't know why you would write these other scenes so much more passionately. Maybe Emily just loves foreplay. Maybe
loves.
Loves it. So she ends up going to Marg's house to have their final session before the pitch, and she confronts her. She's like, is there anyone that you know on this island? And Lauren's like, what do you mean? And she's like, I think you know what I fucking mean. Stop answering my questions with questions. And Margaret's like, you stop answering my questions with questions. And I was like, this is so brutal. And so finally Alice is straight up like, who the fuck is Dr. Cecil? And Margaret's like, why do you know about that? I just got asked about that in my other session. To remind you, I have an NDA. And Alice is like, yeah, I'm aware, but I figured this out my fucking self. Thank you very much. And so Margaret's like, okay, there's a reason that I kept this hidden. And then we get into the story.
So Margaret starts by explaining kind of this perfect storm that happened between Cosmo's demise, their marriage trouble, Laura's trial. All the eyes were on them. And
where is the in-house therapist? Like, where?
I think it's Dr. Cecil, maybe.
Maybe.
But Margaret starts to understand for once in her life, like, Laura's desire to be a shut-in, and she starts like staying home more. And Cosmo's like, I still have to go out, and Laura's like, I need to get away from this place, like, entirely. Like entirely. So they set up for Laura and Dr. Cecil to move to Switzerland, so they're like cannot be found. Like, nobody's gonna find them. She can continue to recover from the public eye.
Love that.
Meanwhile, the marriage troubles are still happening. Margaret's struggling to get pregnant, which infertility is really tough, and we can all feel for that. But Cosmo's getting really restless with this new life of like being a shut-in. His career is declining. They're wanting to start a family, but they can't. And he has this revelation that Margaret had previously where he's like, maybe we can't bring a baby into this world. Like, this is crazy. Like, a baby should be able to run around a playground and go see friends and like not have to be like shut into the house alive.
That was heartbreaking.
It really was. And so we get to this devastating, heartbreaking climax of the story, and she explains that she thought she was suffering from appendicitis, correct?
Yep. And she's like, I have this pain and like fever and whatever.
Yeah. And Cosmo is like scared for her life, so he panics and decides to like rush her to the hospital. And on the way to the hospital, they're being pursued by paparazzi a la Princess Diana.
Very Princess Diana.
Unsafe. It's turning fatal. There's a big car crash.
Oh, God. So they're at the hospital, and Margaret comes out of her stupor, and she's basically unscathed. She finds out that she actually had appendicitis, but she finds out that Cosmo was killed. And so she's there with Dr. Cecil. The parents fly in, and she's like, please call Laura. Like, please tell Laura about this. And so they tell her. Laura never shows up. And Laura decides not to show up because, of course, she cannot be in front of the public eye. She can't risk any part of that. And so Margaret is pissed. She's like, I will literally never speak to her ever again. And so Margaret falls into kind of this deep state of grief. Like, she ends up just lashing out against the press. She's like acting like she's deranged on purpose, just to like be able to like throw it back in their faces.
Like Britney Spears.
Yes. Yeah. Like just losing her mind. And once that got out of her system, she's like, actually, I just want to be alone entirely, like in my home, and I don't want anyone around me. So she sends her parents home. She sends the whole staff home. She stays in Nashville because that's where all of Cosmo's stuff is. She's like, I am just staying right here. And so she eventually becomes a recluse herself, like in that Nashville home, and she just doesn't leave. And she eventually decides that she kind of wants to disappear. She's like, I'm done with this fame. I'm done with this image, whatever.
Laura got to disappear.
I'm like, why can't Margaret disappear? So she tries. She tries to go to, I think she went to London. She tried to go to Miami. She goes to all of these. She went to like some random place on the East Coast, and like everywhere the tabloids just end up finding her. And so she ends up just deciding that she can't do it anymore. She's going to go back to the House of Ives. And
of course.
She kind of spends the twilight of her parents' years with them. She watches her dad die, Roy die, eventually her mom die. And eventually she ends up being alone in her house. And meanwhile, when all that's happening, Laura and Cecil are in Switzerland together. And they end up getting fucking married. And they end up changing their names. They end up doing the whole thing. They become Swiss citizens, the whole 9 yards. And they end up having a baby together there. So basically, Laura gets this entire life that Margaret wanted overnight. And
does she deserve it? We don't know.
We don't know. That's still TBD. So after Marg goes through all of this, by the way, she doesn't show up for the wedding. She doesn't go see the baby, whatever. She's still not talking to Laura. This is years later. She's been a shut-in at the House of Ives for like years upon years. And someone comes to the door. Someone comes and knocks on the door. And who is it but Laura and Cecil's child? And her name is none other than Jody.
Jody, we've been wondering who you are.
Fucking Jody, who's been making the coffee, is Margaret's niece. What do you know? In which this part actually shocked me. I did not see that coming.
I didn't either. I thought Jody was her lesbian lover the entire time.
I thought that Jody was either her lover, but then when we learned all this stuff about Laura, I was like, I wonder if Jody's actually Laura.
Interesting. That made me pause. I guess we never confirmed how old Jody is.
Yeah, we don't. All we know is that she makes the coffee and she like, helps out around the house, and she sometimes goes on a break from her job.
If you all remember from my first summary, I was like, pay attention because Jody makes her make the sandwiches one day.
Exactly. And I was like, that is either a lover or a sister. And no in between. But apparently there isn't in between, and it's fucking niece. So Jody shows up and she's like, Margaret, I'm your niece and Laura is sick and you must come now. And Margaret's like, fuck off. And so she literally kicks Jody out. Jody leaves her a card which basically has the address of where they're living. And Margaret does nothing with it other than stare at it and like let it collect dust. And so she essentially memorizes the address on there, memorizes the phone number on there, but like does absolutely nothing with it and just basically becomes like Bella and Twilight and New Moon, which is like sitting in the chair and like the days are going by, the months are going by. And so she eventually decides that she's just like, I want to finally disappear. And then that's where her cliffhanger of her story ends. And we very quickly and abruptly cut back to Hayden and Alice.
Yes. And Hayden shows up at Alice's house after he gives his final pitch about the book. And Alice is like, how did it go? And he's like, it went well. It was fine. And they have like this weird moment where
he has champagne.
Yes, he has champagne. Yes, he has champagne. And they have this weird minute where they talk about like dreaming about writing the book together. And Hayden's like, I already asked her that last week and she said no.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, shouldn't I be giving you the champagne? And he's like, you can get the champagne tomorrow after your final pitch. So they have a night together. I hope to God they had sex again. It doesn't explicitly say it, which is shocking. So the next morning, Hayden's like walking around Alice's house and picks up her little mosaic from Margaret. And he's like, this is kind of weird. Nobody else spells their name like this except my mom.
Oh my God.
And Alice is like, what are you talking about? And he's like, Nicolette, that's my mom's name. And I've never seen it spelled like this before. And she was like, is Nicolette a family name? And he's like, I don't know. My mom was adopted. And she's like, well, when was she adopted? When was she born? And he's like, 1967.
Who would have thought that Hayden's random mom would have played such a role in this?
The depressed mom of the small town mayor. And Alice starts putting it together and she's like, I gotta go. She's in the car in front of Margaret's house and she's like, I'm going to confront Margaret about this. So she goes up to Margaret and starts being like, this has all been a lie. You better fess up right now. I deserve the truth. And Margaret's like, let me tell you the whole story, but also let me tell you that you have an NDA and you cannot say any of this to Hayden. And Alice is already shitting herself because of that. So she explains that before Cosmo's death, it wasn't appendicitis. She was pregnant.
Oh my God.
And it was a little baby. And Cecil helped her give the baby up for adoption because she decided Cosmo was right. I need to protect this baby from the lifestyle I live. The curse of the Ives. Nothing good happens when you're part of this family, and I want to give her a good life. So she was a shut-in for 2 years because 9 months would be too suspicious. Nina, do you remember Nina, guys? She left for Europe for 2 years when she was having little Ruth Allen.
Yeah.
And so she only holds her little cute baby for 5 minutes before giving her away. It was so sad.
That is devastating. Oh my gosh.
And she says that she tried to contact Nicolette one time when she turned 18, but she saw that she was living such a peaceful life that she was like, I'm going to stay away. This isn't the right thing to do. Yeah. So Jody is actually the one that sent the email that brought Alice to the island, because they were trying to get Hayden to come to the island and he wasn't, so they had to come up with this disguise plan where like this little
make it a competition.
Yeah, this little author from the scratch is gonna write my biography. Don't you want to come compete? And he took the bait. And so Alice at this point is realizing 2 things. One, this job is fake and I'm pissed off, and this was all not real. I wasn't even like brought here because of my good writing. I was literally
fully
brought here to be a pawn in this game. And then she's also like, oh my God, Hayden doesn't know, and I have this NDA, and I'm not allowed to say anything, and I'm horrified. So Margaret's like, no, Alice, you can still write the book. We'll write this book, I promise. Like, we'll just leave out Nicolette, and Hayden never needs to know. And Alice
like, I don't want your pity book. Okay.
No. Yeah, you can't pay me off with your New York Times bestseller. And so Alice is like, I refuse to write this book, and I am leaving. And I know I signed that NDA, so I can't say anything to Hayden, but I can refuse to write your story.
Well, and she's like urging Margaret to tell Hayden. She's like, you need to fucking tell him. And Margaret's like, no, he doesn't like me. I can tell that he doesn't like me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, and I know that because he bowed out of writing the book. And
yes, I forgot this part.
No. Yeah. I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
Amongst all the stuff, I forgot that. Yeah, Alice finds out that Hayden is the one that denied the book. It wasn't that he didn't get the job. He bowed out, and you don't really know why, but you assume because he wants Alice to have the job.
Correct. Well, he's just in love with Alice. He's a little lovesick puppy. So
and he's afraid she's going to leave him if he doesn't get the job.
Yeah, exactly. So Mark's like, Hayden hates me, and I know it. Like, he has not liked me from the start, and I am not going to tell him, and I'm not going to bait him into, like, having to deal with me because of my own drive. And Alice is like, you're out of your mind. You don't know what you're talking about. And then she just storms out.
Yeah.
It's like, this was a terrible argument.
Right. She was like trying to go for like the emotional connect, like I gave away my daughter, and then she was like, but also don't forget about those legal documents.
But also don't forget that you will owe me millions if you say a word to my grandson.
Yeah.
So Alice leaves, and she's like conflicted over the whole situation, as one would be. And she goes home, and she's like frantically packing. She's like, where the fuck am I gonna go? I can't go home, but I cannot stay here or whatever. And Hayden shows up with another bottle of champagne and a smile on his face because he's like, oh my God, she just got the job. And Alice just has a full-blown mentee bee, and she's like, I can't talk to you. I can't be around you. You gotta go, but you do need to talk to Margaret. I can't talk to you, but you do need to talk to Marg. And he's like, why the fuck would I talk to Marg? I want to talk to you. And she's like, don't talk to me. And so she tells him to go away. He's devastated, and he says goodbye. He does his goodbye, Alice, again.
Yeah.
And she's entirely alone. And so,
don't you think that at this point he's assuming she's mad because he gave up the job for her?
Yeah, and she like says it super quickly, and he's like, well, yeah, I did. I didn't want it, and I want you more than the book. And then she's like, I can't talk to you, and like just keep saying I can't talk to you. And then she's like, get the fuck out. And I was like, Alice, you could have potentially handled that better. Alice, there were other ways to handle this situation, but okay.
Yeah. She's having a mental breakdown.
She's having a mental breakdown. I guess we can't fully judge. So she ends up actually going to her mom's, and she's sulking for days until her badass mom shows up, and she's like, you need to get to work if you're going to be staying in my house. Like, this ain't no like free ship that you're on. And so they end up working together for days on the garden. They like cook together, but it's all basically in silence. And finally her mom breaks the silence and is like, can you please tell me what the fuck is going on?
Mm-hmm.
And Alice finally just snaps, and she like loses it on her mom, and she's like, you don't respect me, you don't respect my work, you have never liked me, like I know that you love me, but like I've always felt out of place in this family. And she's just like going off on her mom, like, fucking
things aren't so fine after all.
Things are not fine, turns out. And so her mom like breaks down to her. It was this very sweet moment, and she's like, that's not the case at all. I love you and I like you as a person. I just don't fully understand you. And so she explains that the dad was always the one that really understood Alice, because her mom, when they were young, when they were babies, she's like, you guys were my heart, just out in the open, like just running around, and you were my little shadow. But then as you got older, you got into these things that I couldn't understand, and you became this person that I didn't understand. And so she always kind of just leaned on the dad essentially as like her Alice crutch. And then when the dad died, she obviously lost that connection through him.
Mm-hmm.
And so she apologizes and she's like, I wish it were me. And Alice is like, relax. Okay, like, let's not get dramatic. So Alice talks about the fact that she wishes that she had recorded the dad and that she had taken more notes about the stories that he would tell and about his life. And the mom's like, well, it's not too late. Let's do it. And so they end up sitting down together and they start like going through photo albums, and Alice is recording the whole thing, and it's very sweet. They're like
very cute.
They do a whole night of storytelling back and forth with each other, trying to get to know each other.
She's still at her mom's, and none other than these friends that were mysteriously like in this group chat this whole time and got brought up like really randomly are all of a sudden face to face in person.
Basically irrelevant friends, just chat.
Yeah. You're like not even sure if they're good friends because every time they text, they're like at work. I'm not sure. Yeah. But they come to support her over her heartbreak and her mental breakdown. And she tells them that she decides that she's going to stay in Atlanta for a while. And she's going to still work for the Scratch, like remotely, but she wants to try to write this novel with her mom and write about love instead of celebrity journalism.
Love that for her.
And did we talk about how she had written a note to Margaret?
Not yet.
So she had also written a note to Margaret during this time that was like, I'm urging you to tell Hayden about what's going on. Like, you need your family. He needs family. Everybody needs to know the truth, right?
I don't fully know the contents of the letter.
Oh, yeah, but that's what I think's in the letter.
Oh, yeah, fully. I just assumed she was like, Margaret, figure your shit out.
Oh, so I assumed it was
I can have on my hands.
A full guilt trip. That was... Family is everything, Margaret. Have you learned nothing from sharing your story? So her and her mom are having like this cute moment where they're like ordering pizza together, and there's a knock on the door, and she opens it, and it's none other than Hayden Anderson.
Oh,
and
what's he there for? What's he doing?
Margaret's letter and her letter she sent to Margaret. I thought it was weird that
a lot of letters
that Margaret included her own letter with it, but again, we don't know what it says.
Yeah.
Again, very quick to apologize, very quick to figure this out. And he's like, Alice, I'm in love with you. And that is the end of this story, is that we are going to be together and we're not going to fight this anymore.
Well, because the whole letter that Alice had sent was basically a love letter to Hayden, but she sent it to Margaret.
See,
she basically was like
confirming, because
she basically was like, you need to tell this man because you need him in your life because he is amazing. He's this, he's that. He does these things in the morning. He loves green tea. And like, I am completely and wholly in love with him. And she like literally professes her love for this man and like trying to convince Margaret to tell him.
See, I'm glad that you held on to that, because I'm so over Hayden and Alice at this point that I glanced over that. I have no idea what was in that letter. All I knew was he said, I love you and they're going to be together. Shock and surprise. Anyways,
it's a delight.
Other surprise, Hayden's like, don't worry, I know that you're moving to Atlanta, but it's okay because I somehow already applied to a job, interviewed, and signed an offer, and I'm going to be a music journalist in Atlanta.
Did he say he signed an offer?
No, but I am saying that. I'm like, wow, you took those steps quickly.
I think he literally was like, Atlanta's a great place for music journalists or something like that.
He did it for Alice. And he did it before he even got that letter, that man.
He knew from day one that he was going to move across the country for her. And that's going to be it.
So then we're like, oh, classic happily ever after. Alice and Hayden have found each other again. And we get to the epilogue.
Yes. And so this is the final story in the book where we wrap everything up. And we learn that Alice and Hayden actually ended up co-writing the book about Margaret. And it's a hit. Shaka. And the mom is involved. Nicolette was told about the whole thing. And turns out she's open and excited to get to know Mark. And she also is included in the story. Like, that was the only way they decided that they would write it, is if they could essentially tell the whole truth.
Right.
And so years go by. Margaret starts to get a little bit older. Alice and her mom like go over there periodically to help take care of her. Hayden also does. And all of the sudden, Alice and Hayden get pregnant. Like, we don't even know the status of their relationship at this point. We know that they're having a baby, though, and they have a daughter, and her name is Laura, and she's born, and like everyone's there. Like, Marg's texting, the moms are there, Jodie's involved somehow, and that was literally how it ended. It's literally Alice just being like, oh, everything is so circular and it all just comes around. And she's like having this reflection, and then that's it.
And then the last sentence is like, this is the story of a great, big, beautiful life.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
And there you go. And
there you go.
It started with Laura and it ended with Laura.
Started with Laura and ended with Laura. Guys, I know that was an anticlimactic ending, but to be honest, that's how it felt reading it.
Yeah, so maybe we get into our bits of the week and also potentially dovetail into just like a review and reactions and thoughts, because there was a lot here.
There was a lot. Okay, my first question right off the bat is, how do you feel that they named the baby Laura? Did she deserve to have a namesake?
I don't think so, personally. And
she never showed up.
Yeah, I think, skipped over the fact, too, that Margaret eventually ended up going to, which is how she ended up on Little Crescent. She ended up going to Laura when she was like, she had 6 months left to live, or whatever. And they spent like those last few months together. And Margaret was like, you know, that was incredible. I wish I had more time. But Laura, I kind of felt like had like her little redemption moment at the end.
Little bit, but I don't know. I was thinking that the daughter should have been named Margaret or something.
I tend to agree, but you know.
Yeah. Or Cosmotina. Like something.
Cosmotina.
There's something better.
Definitely Cosmotina. I agree, though. I didn't fully understand that at all. Like, or why not like pull through Nicolette again?
Right.
That would have been cute.
The name that means everything.
Right. Or even like pulling fucking Jodie. And like Jodie was putting the team on her back, like left and right. And I'm like, this woman got no recognition, but okay.
100%.
So, I don't know. I thought that was really interesting. And
I have a burning question for you.
Oh, okay.
So when we first started this read along, you were like, I actually like Hayden. I think Hayden's pretty cool. Like, I get it. And I want to know at the end of this book if you still get it.
I still get the appeal. I just had less appeal for him by the end, personally.
Yeah.
I will say, though, what I did appreciate about him was that he was very consistently, like, open about his feelings, like, very direct about how he felt, whatever. Like,
right.
Even if he was still trying to, like, intensely control everything else, like, I felt like he was very open, which I appreciated. But yeah, towards the end, I was like, enough of your fucking rules. Enough.
Yeah.
Enough of trying to like put these constraints on people, put these boxes around people. It's just too much. Like, I don't know. That
I wanted a little bit more of a character arc for him. Like, I wanted him to like break free of his shackles a little bit more and like have this like freedom moment. And he never really had that.
Which, honestly, maybe him having that was him bowing out of the book.
No, I think that was weak. I think that was weak. I think he bowed out because he was like, this is the easy way out.
No, I think that he did it because he cared so much about Alice. And I feel like at the beginning of the book to the middle of the book, you would never picture him doing that for another person. Like, he was so obsessed with his career. He was so obsessed with winning. Like, he wouldn't, like, he set these rules about them talking about things. Like, she would walk past his laptop and he would like shut it every single time. So he was so intense about the job up until the point that he fell in love with her. And then all of a sudden he's like dropping hints about the fact that he's basically going to ditch the book. Like, I feel like he was dropping those hints like very early on, where it wasn't just about like the easy way out. I think he was just like, I'm in love with this person and I don't want to lose them.
I think I would believe it more if he would have shown up in shorts and he would have popped the champagne in her face and sprayed it all over her.
Okay, let's talk about that, because that is your idea of freedom. I think if Hayden would have done that, I would have been like, this man isn't free. He's like lost his marbles. Like he is literally unwell. So
fair,
I don't
fair.
know. I don't know.
I just like didn't love the Alice and Hayden storyline. I liked Alice separately and I liked Hayden separately.
Yeah.
Like their storyline together, it could have been anybody.
I think I liked them more at the beginning and middle than I did at the end. Like I really struggled with their dynamic at the end, which like I'm wondering if she did that intentionally, essentially having them fall in love, kind of wrap it up a little bit tighter so that she could like explore the Margaret stuff more.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would agree. Like by the end, I was just like, okay, whatever.
I could have read a whole story about Margaret and the Ives family. Like I
Easily.
read a biography
Easily.
on the Ives, all the way from Lawrence down to Laura Grace.
Right, totally. And I'm like, maybe the romance could have been Margaret and Cosmo, or some of the other, like Gerald and Nina. Like you can get the romance aspects like from these other people in the book other than Hayden and Alice, and I felt like you could literally just have them be journalists and like that'd be it.
I also was like pleasantly surprised that like she didn't try to make the Cosmo and Margaret love story bad. Like I was glad that she was like, no, they were soulmates.
They were just in love. Yeah.
Like, they were meant to be together. There was no downfall. It wasn't like her parents where they were like madly in love at first, but then it didn't work out. Like I'm glad that she went like full like soulmate with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. And I also thought it was so wild that they only were married for 4 years before he died. Like it felt like so much longer in the way that she told it. So you like almost did fall in love with them as a couple, so that when he did die, like it did feel very devastating.
Yeah.
But I do agree. Like I really liked the way that she depicted all of the relationships within the Ives family, because I thought there were just so many dynamics that she like wove through the story really well.
It was good.
It was good.
Yeah, that part was good.
I also thought that the storyline between the mom and Alice was interesting.
Yeah.
Like to your point, it's like we never learn about what happened to Audrey. Like she basically like hints at it, but like that's kind of it. And then it's like we don't know how that actually impacted the mom. We only know that like when Alice was younger, she felt like she had to like supplement by like being super toxically positive all the time to like make sure that everyone like felt like she was fine. But it's like you never really knew like how that actually impacted their dynamic. So I thought it was just interesting that it ended up like solely boiling down to the fact that the mom just didn't understand her.
Yeah, I also was confused by that, and I don't feel like we ever got any resolution on like how the sister storyline played into that. Like she basically said like, oh, I felt like I had to be more independent from you as a mother because I needed you to be able to take care of Audrey. But like you said, it was like very like surface level explanation.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe that just comes from the fact that Alice kind of put herself into this like I'm fine box so that they never had to worry about her. And that meant like there was just a distance that was created between her and everyone else in her family, maybe other than her dad.
Yeah.
Where it's like they couldn't feel like they could get to know her because she was in that state. Like maybe that's why. But I don't know. I just thought that was interesting because I was like, it feels like there's more. There should be more here. There could be more here. But I don't know.
I think I could have done without like Alice's family problems. Like if Alice was gonna have those family problems, I wanted them to like connect to Margaret's family problems more.
Yeah.
Like come to an understanding. So I kept expecting the sister storylines to be like parallel and like there be some sort of understanding between them, but that never happened.
Well, I guess there was kind of a parallel in that like both Alice and Margaret kind of felt like they had to like supplement or change themselves in certain ways.
True.
be able to make sure that their family dynamic was like protected or their sisters felt protected. And they did it in very different ways, where Margaret obviously like went full attention paparazzi princess, and Alice went to like I'm fine girl. But I feel like in their own ways, like they both were kind of that person where it was like,
that's true.
Like my sister kind of like needs this added layer of support, so I'm gonna be that person.
I guess I just wanted like her and Margaret to talk about it.
Yeah.
I think.
Which, like, I think it's hard, too, because it's, like, kind of what Margaret said at some point where she was like, you guys don't share anything with me. Like, I'm sharing everything about myself and whatever. And Alice is like, yeah, that's the fucking point of this job. But, like, it is true. I feel like if they talked more about their past, like, collectively, they probably would have found a lot of similarities.
Right.
But... yeah, I don't know. Alice's family dynamic I kind of struggled with because it was like, I don't know why, like, your dad dying, your mom being distant, something happened with your sister who's in the Peace Corps.
Yeah, she's
like culture relevant here.
Yeah. There was a lot of like side character stories, like the sister being in the Peace Corps, the friends who text in the group message about work problems.
Yeah.
I like would like a little explanation from Emily Henry about like why those were a necessary part of the plot.
Yeah, I don't think they were, to be honest. They weren't for me.
They'd be left out.
Pour moi, they were not.
They got left out, and then one less dry humping session.
Yeah, like 2 less. So what would you say your rating was overall?
So when we were like 2 episodes into our read along, I was like, I think this is going to be a 5-star. Like I literally like in the book bits, I was like, oh my God, guys, stop being so mean to freaking Margaret. She needs our support. And then I got to the back half and I was like, I love Margaret's story, but this is getting tough.
Yeah.
And so I've seen a lot of people say they did not finish it, which I can understand. Like, or I would skip through to just finish Margaret's parts maybe. So with that in mind, I think I'm like a 3.5.
Wow. Oh, you're going 0.5.
Yeah.
I've never heard you go with a 0.5.
Well, I'm a professional book podcaster now.
That's right. That's right, darling. She got her numbers, her percentages. Yeah, I'm with you. I think at the beginning I was like eating the story up. Like I literally could not stop like listening to it when I had it on the audiobook. I couldn't put it down. And then I think there was just this lull in the story where I think I was getting so tired of Alice and Hayden's relationship.
Yeah.
Like just wanted to read Margaret's parts. Like I think to your point, if this was literally this story about journalists like trying to uncover this story about this like famous family and whatever, and you like go really deep into the family's history and what, like it would have been so good for me. Like those were the parts where I was just like, holy shit, like even when we were back in like her family history. But yeah, I agree, towards the end I just got to the point where I was like, okay, this is not super believable anymore. Like it's just like becoming, I don't know, I felt like she needed to wrap it up a little bit, and so
boy did she wrap it up.
She wrapped it up with a random baby named Laura. I was like, what?
Yeah,
come on. So I don't know, I think for the beginning I have to give it 3 stars.
3?
Yeah, I think I'm closer to a 3. I think the ending just really tanked it for me.
Yeah, same. It was.
I really struggled with that. Yeah. Yeah. It just felt like so much was sandwiched into the last like 3 chapters where it was like trying to wrap it all up and connect the dots and whatever, that I don't know. It kind of fell apart for me, unfortunately.
So I don't know if this is on every book because honestly, I read on my Kindle, but a lot of the snippet reviews on the back are praise about Emily Henry as an author and not the book. And what is
interesting?
And what does that say about this book?
Interessante. I also am like very interested in people's thoughts on the random cult aspect of the story. Like, and I know we went to her live thing and she was talking about how she's so interested in it. And I was like, I wasn't fully understanding or appreciating like why that needed to be a part of the story. And like, maybe it was just like the Ives family needing to experience that level of trauma to like really end their like domination, their world domination with Margaret. But I don't know, that part to me too, I was like, why am I in Jonestown right
I
now?
almost feel like you need to read a biography on Emily Henry's life before you read this to understand the choices she made.
Yeah, that might be true.
Like something happened with Emily and a cult at some point.
At some point, who knows? Wow. So you were a 3.5 and I was a 3. Wow.
Yep.
What do you know?
And I will say, beautiful cover. All of Emily Henry's books are gorgeous. They look great on the shelf. Not
And
mad about
this was fun to read, and this was fun to do a read along and just like she gave us a lot of fodder and she gave us a lot of stuff to talk about.
She did.
For that, I'm like, this is like a great book club book. Like this is a really good book for just like a group tandem read. So
Yeah,
I gotta shout her out for that. And I also am gonna shout her out again for doing the genre bending thing, like making some really bold choices. Even though some of it I was like she did it. She went for it and gotta respect it. So
and I love the Ives family. So that's
and I love Margaret Ives, even though she was a hoe at the end. I love her. That bitch is a badass. So
send us off, Cass.
all right. Next week, I think we'll probably be unveiling our next book that we'll be reading.
Ooh, if you have any opinions, drop it in the comments.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. We'll see where the wind takes us, where the wind will blow us. Well, who knows? We could stay in romance. We could go back to our romance series.
Our followers are really blowing us towards romantasy again.
Blowing. We'll see where our sails get blown. In the meantime, we'll see you same time, same place next Sunday. Bring your blanket, bring your book boyfriends, and we'll see you then.
See ya.